Alright guys, I would like to give you my pitch for The Batman 2, which is coming out October 3rd, 2025. So in the first Batman movie, we had a real intellectual threat to Batman with Paul Dano's The Riddler. And I think for this one it'd be good to focus on a physical opponent. Now there's been rumors of casting a villain like Clayface, which I think would be absolutely fantastic, or even Harvey Dent / Two-Face. But for this script in air quotes, I would like to focus on doing a physical villain like Mr. Freeze. Now I'll repeat this a lot throughout the video, but I think to truly capture the essence of Batman, like the first film did so well, the filmmakers really need to lean into the fantastical element of Batman. Because let's be real here, Batman, as cool as he is not a realistic individual. What makes him realistic is his motivations to fight crime, as well as his humanity, not necessarily that this is a real person who could exist in our world. Because if this person did exist in our world, we'd consider him to be just absolutely fucking crazy. And that's why I think Mr. Freeze would be the perfect villain for Batman's Rogues Gallery to fit my idea of what the Batman 2 should be like. Here's a guy who's a physical threat, who has perfectly understandable motives. He just wants to save his terminally ill wife. And he's a character that the filmmakers can really lean into the comic book element of. I mean, he doesn't have to wear the suit because he has to survive in sub-zero temperatures or anything like that. No, his suit should give him a physical advantage over Batman. It gives him enhanced strength. And then, I mean, he's getting the freeze gun. I mean, we're gonna lean into that element. As for the cast, we're sticking with Robert Pattinson. He's my favorite actor as Batman. But please, brother, just hit the gym a few times. You gotta get jacked for this role. It's Batman. And she's already been announced that she's returning, so of course Zoe Kravitz will be playing Selina Kyle, keeping Colin Farrell because of his awesome portrayal as the Penguin. And then Andy Serkis, I want to give him a little more time in this movie to develop as Alfred. And I loved Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. I thought he did a great job. This is a bit of a small role for an actor as famous as Richard Madden, but he will be our Ferris Boyle. And then Mark Strong will be Dr. Victor Freeze. As for a loose plot synopsis of this movie, I was thinking something along the lines of, several months after the Gotham City flood, Batman gains a powerful enemy from his Rogues Gallery as Mr. Freeze teams up with the Penguin. And just so everyone's clear, I am someone who simply enjoys watching movies and reading comic books. By no means am I a professional screenwriter or have any experience doing this, so if you think my dialogue sucks, then fuck you. I tried my hardest. Alright, we're going to kick things off in the Batcave, and we're going right into it with a suit-up scene for Robert Pattinson's Batman. We'll show some shots of him getting his eye black on, putting some tools in his belt, gloves, cowl, all of that. While that's going on, we'll have another one of his monologues where he is reading out of his journal. I think that was one thing I really appreciated about the first movie, is his monologues, because in the comics, a lot of the writing in it is the internal dialogue that Batman is having with himself. So I think that's a good element to have in here. While he's getting suited up, maybe he has some new additions to his suit, some alterations. I'm a big fan of the navy cowl and cape. Maybe not, but we'll see. While the narration continues and he finishes suiting up, he hops on the Batcycle, makes his way out of the Batcave. The narration could consist of briefly recapping the events of the first movie, talking about how the National Guard has helped clean up the flood, but there's still a lot of damage done to the city. He could talk about how Alfred has recovered from the incident in the previous film, and he could talk about just his current thoughts and feelings on what it's like to be Batman right now, what is still needed of him, how he feels he has inspired others by being a symbol of hope rather than vengeance. And as he is driving the Batcycle through the streets of Gotham, we just need more shots from cinematographer Greg Fraser, who did a great job that aspect in the previous film. And as the narration continues and concludes, Batman rolls up to the crime scene, where we see Jim Gordon and other police officers there. Now that it's been a few months, the police officers are more accepting of them as a duo, and are not as hostile towards Batman, even welcoming him into the crime scene, trying to get his thoughts on the whole situation. They examine the scene. It's a bank robbery, but the Damage to the structure is minimal, and it appears that there's only cash taken from the registers, and the safe is untouched. While they're in the bank, they feel that the walls and the ground are icy cold to the touch, frost building on them. There's even a light snow coming down from the ceiling while they're inside of the bank. They look around and see that the security camera, the lone camera in the bank, is completely frozen over with ice. They decide to take a look at the footage and enter the security room. They see a blurry image of a man in a bulky suit carrying a large gun, and then the camera is completely frozen over and then gives out because of the cold. After this, outside of the bank, just Gordon and Batman talk. They discuss that there's been a recent string of robberies at banks and that this wouldn't fit someone like the Penguin's MO. He's the new crime lord of Gotham. It wouldn't make sense for him to rip off small banks and take only small sums of cash. They're unsure as to who has been committing the recent string of robberies, so they move on to discuss what they can do to slow down the Penguin. Batman asks Gordon, what would we need to do to convict Penguin? Gordon tells him that they would need clear evidence to connect Penguin to the crimes that he has been committing, but as of right now, there is nothing that points to clear evidence. Gordon asks Batman, what do you think we can do to slow him down in the meantime? Batman mentions that he'd been scouting the docks for the last couple weeks, and the first Tuesday of last month, Penguin's men hijacked a shipment that used to belong to the Falcone family. And Gordon says, I remember those guys being tied up the next morning, but I didn't realize that they were hijacking the shipment the night before. Batman points out that tomorrow is the first Tuesday of the month. Now we're in the Iceberg Lounge. We're in Penguin's office, and one of his goons is escorting Mr. Freeze into the room. I think it'd be cool to get a shot where Freeze is not clearly in focus, or we only see the backside of him, so we don't get the reveal of what he looks like quite yet. But he walks in, sits down, and we are reintroduced to Colin Farrell's Penguin character here as he comes out and tells Freeze that he seems to be the man who's behind all these robberies as of late, and that if he's a man in need of money, he would be willing to hire him to help him with. And then right there, Freeze cuts him off and asks, how did you guys find me? Penguin tells him that he is the crime lord of Gotham, and if there's crime going down somewhere, he's going to be the one to know about it. Not to mention that all the money that is running through the banks essentially belongs to him, so they had trackers in those bills that Mr. Freeze stole as of recently, and that's how they were able to find them. Penguin tells him not to worry about getting the money back. He's not going to lose sleep over a couple $100 or maybe $1,000 or $2,000. Instead, he asks if Mr. Freeze wants to hear the rest of his proposal, and Freeze carefully nods. Penguin tells him that he has had some problems with imports that are coming in, whether that's his drugs or guns, and that the Batman and the cops were able to stop it the last time that the imports came in, and that he was wondering if Mr. Freeze would want to go and make sure everything went all right. Freeze gently asks if he's going to have to harm anyone during this, and Penguin tells him no, it's just that the freaking Batman has been interfering with my operation, and I just want you to make sure that things can go smoothly as possible, and I'll pay you handsomely as a reward. Freeze obliges, and Penguin tells him that it'll be at midnight tomorrow night at the docks, so please be there. Now we're going to get our scene where we're reintroduced to Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. We see a mysterious silhouette hopping along the rooftops of the city. She gets to a window and uses long prosthetic nails to cut a circle out of the glass and opens the skylight, and then she gracefully descends down into the room. She uses her safe cracking kit to open the safe with ease. She loads a bag up with diamonds, jewels, cash. Then she goes back out the way that she came in and hops back along the rooftops and fades into the night. Now we're at the following night at the docks. We cut to Batman. He's on top of a crane or some sort of building, and he's scouting as he sees the cargo ship come to the harbor. Penguin's men pull up in large vans or trucks. The ship pulls in, and they start unloading whatever's on it again. This could be drugs, this could be guns, whatever. Then Batman grapples down, comes in, and fights off the henchmen with ease. Takes them down pretty easily. This is a more experienced Batman, so I believe he should be a little bit better at fighting. Then the sounds of sirens build as Gordon and his men start to roll up to arrest the henchmen. While they're putting the cuffs on and whatnot, Out of view, just a hurricane of ice comes down, starts freezing the cars, damaging the cars, freezing the policemen to the ground. Then we get our first actual look at Freeze. He's on top of a bunch of crates with gun in hand. We want him to look very intimidating and powerful in this scene, so maybe he's got the red goggles on and the red is really glowing, or whatever. But during this time, Batman has ducked out of the way. He's taking cover behind another crate, and while the policemen are stuck or frozen or whatever, the henchmen are able to finish loading and drive off. Freeze then is going to descend down the backside of the cargo crates, and then Batman is going to run up the top, and he sees Freeze driving away just in an unmarked white van. And from the top of the crate, he throws down a batarang, sticks into the back of the car, and it's revealed that it has a tracker on it. Batman sprints back down the cargo boxes and helps Jim Gordon get his leg unstuck from a piece of ice. He tells him, I think that was our bank robber. And Gordon goes, what's he doing here with all of Penguin's men? And Batman says, I don't know, but I got a tracker on him. Let's follow him. They hop in the Batmobile together, which is just the coolest freaking Batmobile. They follow the tracker. They realize that the van has been parked at the Iceberg Lounge. As they pull up to the Iceberg Lounge, the van starts to drive away. They follow the van around. By the time they get to the van, it has just been completely frozen over, covered in ice, and abandoned. Gordon says to Batman, so the Iceman is working for the Penguin? Batman says, it looks that way. He might have brought in some hired muscle to help him with these shipments. Alright, we're at our next Catwoman scene. She's in a fancy jewelry store. She has cracked a safe and she's bagging jewels from there. While she's doing that, a guard comes up from behind her, puts her in a chokehold. She managed to escape. Maybe she knocks him out with a kick. She takes the bag of jewels, runs off. Next scene, she drops the bag of jewels at the feet of an unknown man. She says, you wouldn't believe the trouble I had to go through to get this. Trouble, the man says. The camera then pans up to reveal that it is the Penguin. The only reason you're in this situation is because of the trouble you got yourself into over in Bloodhaven. You called me up to help you out, and this is what you owe me. So don't talk to me about trouble, is what he says to her. Whatever, Catwoman replies. What's next? Ferris Boyle, GothCorp CEO. We were doing business together for a while, but he dropped out, and he still owes me money from our last deal. You can work him in a few nights at the GothCorp charity event. Just take what he's got in his safe, and that should be enough. And then maybe we'll be even. Catwoman reluctantly agrees. Now we're in the Batcave as Bruce is doing some research, doing some investigating. Alfred comes up to him, and he says, any updates on your bank robber, Master Bruce? Bruce is currently using his fancy contact lenses to ID the view of Freeze that he got at the docks. Bruce tells him he's getting there, scans the face, searches through some possible identities to see who comes up. And Bruce goes, yep, this is him, Dr. Victor Freeze. Alfred says, a doctor? What's he doing mixed up with the scum of Gotham? Bruce says, I'm not sure yet. He's a former GothCorp employee, fired a few months ago, and he's just been under the radar since then. Alfred says, until now. Bruce grabs his cowl, and Alfred says, where are you off to? Batman says, GothCorp. Now, if we really want to capture the essence of Batman, as well as play into the detective theme that the series seems to be going for so far, we gotta have a scene of Batman sneaking into somewhere. So in this scene, he's gonna sneak into GothCorp, sneakily. He's gonna go through some files with his flashlight, and he's gonna find Victor Freeze's file, and he's going to be reporting what he finds back to Alfred. He tells Alfred that Freeze's research was in cryostasis, which would explain how he's able to harness the power of ice into a firearm. He reads that Freeze's wife, Nora, has a terminal illness, and Freeze put her into a cryostasis to prolong her life and slow the illness. But unfortunately for him, his company found out he was using their resources on his wife, and they cut off his funds for the research and fired him before he could fully finish his research to perfect the cryostasis process and thus save his wife's life. Obviously, only the facts are going to be in there, and Batman is using his detective skills to speculate about some of that stuff. He also speculates that Freeze used his scientific genius to build this suit, and that he's currently using the suit to rob banks and save up money so he can finish the research to help save his wife, if she's still alive. While he's talking to Alfred, he gets interrupted by hearing some mumbling coming from a few rooms over. Batman exits the file room and walks down a dark hall few doors down, and he walks in to see Mr. Freeze on his hands and knees, talking to his frozen wife. Freeze sees Batman enter, immediately stands up. Batman says to him, "I'm sorry about Nora." Freeze tells him, "I am beyond emotions." Batman says, "This doesn't mean that you won't have to pay for the crimes you've committed, though." Freeze says, "This is a personal mission. It does not concern you." Batman says, "It does now." Freeze tells him, "If you side with my enemies, that makes you one of mine." And they have a hand-to-hand fight. I'm not going to explain out all the choreography here, but basically what needs to happen is Batman needs to be completely overwhelmed by the strength of Freeze's suit. Freeze is just going to dominate him. Batman just manages to escape. Maybe Freeze shoots his gun and Batman outruns the beam and he gets back to the Batmobile. He is disoriented, injured, bloodied, just broken right now. He drives back to the Batcave. Once he arrives at the Batcave, he tumbles out of the driver door. "Alfred!" Alfred runs down. "Master Bruce, are you okay?" Alfred picks him up and lies him on the table to look at the damage. Alfred nurses him and helps him to bed, and then Bruce goes to sleep in his own bed in Wayne Manor. Bruce wakes after a day or two, we're not sure, and he goes into the living room to talk with Alfred. Alfred says, "Not your average street thug, I take it." Bruce replies, "No, he's much stronger than me, Alfred." Alfred asks him what he's going to do, and Bruce says he's not sure, but he thinks he needs a night off from Batman, he says as he groans and feels where his ribs might be broken or whatever. Alfred holds up a classy invitation from Ferris Boyle to the GothCorp charity event, and he says, "Good thing, perhaps this event would be more effective to attend as Bruce Wayne." Bruce shakes his head no. Alfred tells him again, "You need to keep up appearances. You might need to turn on the Wayne charm, and that could be a proactive way to understand more about what goes on in GothCorp." Reluctantly, Bruce nods. "Yeah, that's a fair point. I'll go." Alfred asks him if he should set out his nicest suit for him, and Bruce, as he walks away, says, "Yes, and my nicest cufflinks as well." Bruce rolls up to the event in his classiest car. It's at an extremely high-class ballroom, and everyone is actually thrilled to see Bruce Wayne, and he gets tons of attention. And in the last movie, he was a bit awkward and standoffish. This time, he's just going to be a little more personable, maybe not the Christian Bale level of playboy, billionaire eccentricism that we saw before, but definitely a little more charming. While he's sitting at the table with the rest of Gotham's elite, people start talking about questions of Mr. Freeze and the Batman, and Bruce sees that people are more hopeful about the Batman and that they truly desire for him to stop Mr. Freeze. Around this time, he starts to phase out of the conversation because across the room, he notices Selina Kyle with her date, Ferris Boyle. He's confused because he didn't know she was back in Gotham and thought that she might have said something to him. But he can't talk to her as Bruce Wayne, though, so he goes up to Mr. Ferris Boyle, her date, and he introduces himself. He goes, "Hi, Mr. Boyle, I'm Bruce Wayne." Ferris says, "I'm well aware of who you are, Mr. Wayne." Bruce says, "You must put on a hell of an event to get me out of my castle." Ferris says, "I guess so. What can I do for you, Mr. Wayne?" Bruce says, "I'd love to set up a meeting with you and learn more about what GothCorp is about." Ferris says, "How does tomorrow afternoon sound?" Bruce, smiling, says, "I'll be there." As he walks away, he slips a note, like the one you're seeing, into Selina's purse. She doesn't notice. After the event, she finds the note. Now we get our first interaction in the movie between Batman and Catwoman. They're on the rooftop of GothCorp at midnight, just like the note said. Batman says I didn't realize you were back in Gotham. Catwoman, during this whole interaction, just needs to be a little rude to him to hide the embarrassment that she's working with a Penguin, but also she's upset with him for not coming with her when she left for Bloodhaven. She expresses that to him through some dialogue that I am not well equipped enough to write out. Soon enough, the interaction ends, and Selina swings off the fire escape and leaves Bruce standing alone on the roof. We cut to the next day where Bruce Wayne has his meeting with Ferris Boyle. We see him pull up to GothCorp, we see him led up the elevator, down a few hallways in this beautiful building, gets into Ferris's office, they greet each other. Ferris says he's surprised to see him here and whatnot. He offers him a drink. Bruce refuses, takes a seat, and he says, "Care to catch me up to speed on what GothCorp is working on nowadays?" So Ferris starts telling Bruce about the business side of things, but then Bruce butts in and says, I'm actually more interested in what you guys are doing for research. That's where I'd prefer to invest my money. So Ferris says, oh yeah, for sure. Well, we made some good headway with our cryogenics research and then started using that in more of our sleep research. And Bruce says, I'm very interested in cryogenics. Did you guys stop with the research or what happened? He goes, I would absolutely be able to donate some money from Wayne Enterprises to keep that going. Ferris says, it's kind of you, Mr. Wayne, but unfortunately our top researcher had to be fired. He had some personal circumstances going on that were making him increasingly unstable. Unstable? Says Bruce. Ferris says, look, basically, we found out that he was using company resources on one of his family members, and we told him we were going to cut him off because that's unacceptable and unprofessional. And he started making all sorts of threats towards me and towards the company, so we just had to let him go. Bruce says, I'm sorry to hear that, but look, I'll supply you with enough funds to find yourself a new researcher and continue this research. I think we're talking about potentially saving lives here with cryostasis. Ferris is growing a little impatient with Bruce's persistence, so he says, look, Bruce, I actually got a pretty busy schedule today, so maybe we set up another meeting at a later date. Bruce says, that works. As Ferris stands up to walk him out, Bruce raises his hand and says, I can see myself out. We're back at Wayne Manor. Alfred sees Bruce come in, and he says, where are you returning from? Bruce chuckles and says, I just met with Ferris Boyle. Felt like I had to beg him to reestablish the cryogenic research at GothCorp. Trying to help Freeze out by taking the Bruce Wayne approach, but it doesn't seem to be working. Alfred says, well, asking to the point of importunity can be an effective tactic. Bruce says, it's much easier as Batman. Alfred stares kind of blankly at him. He says, shall I start becoming more accustomed to these frequent Bruce Wayne appearances? Bruce walks over to one of the windows of the manor and sees the bat signal hitting the clouds across Gotham. He says, not quite. Batman meets Gordon on the typical roof that we saw in the first movie where the bat signal is stationed. Gordon tells him, I haven't heard from you in a few days. Where have you been? Batman tells him he's been gathering information on Freeze. Says, I know what he's after. His wife is dying and he's in need of money to help save her. Gordon says, makes sense why he decided to work for the Penguin. Batman says, exactly. They start to brainstorm what they think Penguin and Freeze are going to hit next. Batman tells him that he thinks, with how things went the other week at the docks, that it would make sense for Penguin to increase his shipments coming in, considering that Batman and the cops were not able to stop Freeze. Batman also mentions, now that Penguin has some muscle behind him with Mr. Freeze, he might try and pull a big score. So we should have Gops scouting the docks, as well as making rotations around the large banks in Gotham City. So we start tonight, Gordon says. Batman looks down across the city, and several buildings over, he sees a mysterious silhouette hopping along the rooftops. He suspects it to be Catwoman, so he turns to Gordon and says, yes, I'll meet you guys at the docks. Now here we begin what I consider to be the third act of our script, in air quotes. Batman grapples down to the building to cut Selina off. And now we're going to get our classic Batman and Catwoman rooftop chase. Batman asks her, what are you doing? Catwoman, with bag in hand, we are to assume that these are the belongings of Ferris Boyle. Catwoman says, you don't understand. I need to do this. Batman says, I know you can't. You know I can't let you take that. Catwoman says, I know, and she darts in the opposite direction. Batman chases her. They jump from building to building. They exchange the occasional strike. And after a few minutes of the chase, Batman is able to tackle her, get a hold on her, and she ends up dropping the goodies off the roof. Batman yells at her, what are you doing back in Gotham? Catwoman is visibly upset for Batman tackling her and being responsible for the goodies falling off the roof. She wrestles with him for a little bit, but then eventually fesses up. She screams at him that she's been working for the Penguin, she's been running errands for him and stealing for him because she got into some trouble with the wrong people back in Bloodhaven. She was too embarrassed to call Batman up, therefore she called up the Penguin, given that she used to work at his club, and he paid off what she owed. In turn, she would have to work for him. Just then, sirens start to ring out in the distance, and Batman gets a radio from Gordon. Gordon says, I think you were right. We just got word that the Gotham National Bank, or whatever the big bank is around here, has just been broken into. You need to meet us there immediately. Batman turns to Selina and says, we're going to talk again. He grapples off the roof and makes his way over to the bank. When Batman arrives at the bank, he goes to Gordon. Gordon tells him, "This is where we kept the money from the Maroni bust a couple years back. It's almost $1 billion in cash. I'm sure that's what Penguin and his men are after." The police and Batman devise a plan on how they're going to go in. They go in, and we get a good fight sequence, a shootout with the cops and Penguin's henchmen. Again, this is a more experienced Batman, so he's able to take these dudes out pretty easily. Just a cool action sequence like we got with Batman and Riddler's goons in the first movie. While Batman and the cops are fighting off the goons, Batman is screaming at Gordon, "Where's Freeze? He should be here." After this action sequence and all the arrests are being made, Batman and Gordon are talking. Batman tells him it wouldn't make sense for Penguin to try and pull this major heist without his main guy here. Where was Freeze? They discuss, and later into the evening, while this is going on, or later into the night I say, since it's already pretty late, Gordon gets word that someone was found dead at GothCorp. Immediately, Batman knows that this is not good, and they make their way over to GothCorp. Once they get there, apparently an assistant had found Ferris Boyle dead. He was frozen solid, and frostbite is already forming on his skin, and it's a disturbing scene. "Well, shit," Gordon says. Batman and Gordon wrap the night up, and now we're back at the Batcave with Bruce. Cowl off, hair sweaty, eye black still on, slumped in a chair, and he tells Alfred that he's tired. He feels defeated. "It's no wonder. You've been working non-stop, Master Bruce." Bruce tells Alfred, "At first I wanted to help Freeze, but now I feel like I have to beat him. I never thought he would kill Boyle, even after what Boyle did to him." Alfred says, "Vengeance darkens the soul, Master Bruce. You of all people know that well. And now that I think that you're past that, there was a time where I was worried that every night you went out, that you were going to cross that line. But you never did. And I never will," says Bruce. And yes, I did completely rip that dialogue off from Mask of the Phantasm. They'll talk for a little bit longer, dialogue that I am probably not going to be able to write, but maybe Bruce could tell him about his feelings for Selina and how he's caught between his feelings for her and his duty to be Batman due to his obsessive nature to fight the crime in Gotham. Now we're reaching our finale. While Bruce is still in the Batcave, he gets a radio message from Gordon saying that one of Penguin's henchmen fessed up or something like that, and now they have the evidence they need to tie Penguin to the crimes that he's been committing. Gordon tells Batman that they're going to storm, invade, whatever you want to call it, the Iceberg Lounge and arrest Penguin at midnight tonight, and they want him there. Batman knows Freeze will be there, so he has to get ready for this final battle. As Batman is mentally and physically preparing himself to fight Mr. Freeze again, as he's leaving, Alfred tells him, "Maybe your feelings towards Miss Kyle can coexist with your mission as Batman." Batman then goes to Selina's apartment. He waits on the fire escape until he sees her, and he goes to talk to her. He tells her that she doesn't have to be a victim to her past, or the crime in Gotham, or the Penguin's wishes, and that she can make it all right tonight by helping him out to take down Penguin and Mr. Freeze. Now we're at our final battle, officially, while the police are storming the Iceberg Lounge, having a shootout with all the goons that work for Penguin. I want to have another cool entrance for Batman like we did in the last one, where he crashes through the roof of the Gotham Square Garden, something like that in the Iceberg Lounge, and he's just going to have this all-out brawl with Freeze, where they're both utilizing all their tools. Batman is digging deep to find his strength to beat Mr. Freeze's enhanced strength with his suit, get some of the freeze gun, get some batarangs, get some cool use of his gadgets. Catwoman will be kind of helping out the police as well, and then obviously this is going to end with the goons being defeated, Penguin arrested, and Batman stopping Mr. Freeze. Maybe this is he cuts the cord to the gun to where he can't use the freeze gun, or maybe he just gets the jump on him and is able to punish him physically. With the villains defeated, we are going to have the police escorting the Penguin to Blackgate Prison, where he'll be with Maroni or whoever, right? And then we'll have Batman escort Freeze to Arkham. So while he's at Arkham, Mr. Freeze tells Batman, "Think of it, Batman, to never again walk on a hot summer day with a warm hand to hold. I would do it all over again for her." Batman assures Freeze that Nora will get the help she needs. "You have my word on that." Freeze says, "Thank you, Batman. I appreciate that." And then, out of nowhere, bomb goes off in Arkham. Knocks both Batman and Freeze down. Freeze unconscious, Batman's disoriented, blurry vision, whatnot. A blurry figure walks over him, and we hear the voice say, "We tried to tell you, Batman. and then a face leans in and the camera focuses, and it's Barry Keoghan's Joker's just hideous face, and he says, "This is our city," and there's a cut to black. And with that, we wrap up my pitch for the Batman 2. We conclude the Mr. Freeze and the Penguin plots, as well as give the redemption arc for Selina Kyle's character. And I think this also sets up a sequel where we can use Barry Keoghan's Joker, as well as whatever villains of Batman's were being held at Arkham during this time. If you listen this long, I really appreciate it. And if anyone who watches this knows Matt Reeves, let's get this sent over to him. Thanks for your attention, guys.